enriching is one of the most important activities that you can provide for your bird for the health and welfare. And most importantly as well, it's an occupational therapy for your bird. It will contribute to enriching his life, provide a more versatile lifestyle for your bird, and also help you assess health on a daily basis. Now, if you're in a climate zone like we are in Quebec, where we are extensively using electrical heating in the winter, this is even more important during these seasons. This is regrettably the time where people stop misting their birds, and a lot of feather damaging behaviors result from dry skin, and other health concerns result from dry respiratory tracts. So this is one particular reason why we in North America have to be a little bit more vigilant in establishing a healthy schedule of misting and bathing activities for our companion parrot. Despite optimal nutrients being offered to these birds in our care, it is definitely naturally and instinctively a normal behavior for them to engage in preening activities following a misting session in the wild. Therefore, it is fundamentally important to ensure that birds that are being captive raised as fledglings learn to enjoy and engage in healthy and long-lasting preening sessions following a very fun misting activity. Now, of course, Millie was desensitized, and actually we don't even use this word in our nursery, because he learned as a very young fledgling to see all the other flock mentors enjoy this activity with us. So some of these fledglings, especially in Millie Amazon, really engage in healthy misting sessions when they're very, very young. And this for us is fundamentally important because this is where they're going to be developing the skills of learning how to preen in a healthy fashion in order to conserve the healthy structure of the feather. And so if they don't learn this skill as fledglings, they may regrettably develop feather damaging behavior in the future. All of our birds in our colony are actually evaluated for health on a regular basis, almost daily in the wintertime, following misting activity that is provided to them either with our hose that we use to do the routine or through our artificial rain system. We've become very accustomed to know every particular individual's characteristic traits and the way they react to the misting that is provided to them. And this is really, really important for us to determine whether or not these birds are healthy. A bird that usually engages in a fun misting activity and from one day to the other is not interested anymore, and yet you cannot really determine any unusual stressors or maybe the bird is too tired, then that should be an indication that maybe something is going wrong, and a consultation could be required at this point. Now, of course, making sure that everything in the environment is normal is fundamental, and so make sure that the bird is not in the presence of perhaps a predator or something that he feels may be a predator, because when they engage in the fun activities of getting misted, they will completely liberate themselves and have a little bit they need a very stress-free environment in order to be able to do that. Now, birds that become arthritic or birds that suffer from pododermatitis, which is bumblefoot, and have feet sores, will not likely want to engage in any activity that would allow them to move around on a perch and bounce back and forth. So this can also be an indication that there's something going on with their health. But other than that, birds usually vocalize a lot more when they're being misted. And of course, if they can be within the comfort of the rest of the flock, then it's even more engaging for them. So using a television screen with a polyvision that you've purchased to encourage conservation efforts of the World Parrot Trust or some of the other conservation efforts can definitely increase the enjoyment of this bird while it's being misted. Setting yourself up for success as a caretaker to ensure that your bird actually enjoys being misted or his bathing activity is really, really important. And more often than not, in consulting with caretakers that tell us that their birds don't enjoy it, there's something wrong that they're doing, or perhaps it was a fear that was acquired by the bird because of a negative encounter with either a mist that was more like a jet and it was insulting for them and they weren't ready, or it was too cold, or the environment wasn't proper, or perhaps they've never really learned how to enjoy being misted because they never learned this from the flock mentors when they were fledglings or from the caretaker. And so this is something that needs to be evaluated. But nonetheless, one thing is for sure is I've rarely encountered a citizen that doesn't learn how to eventually enjoy a good mist or a good bathing experience. Now, as previously mentioned, if the water was too cold or the mist wasn't adjusted properly, this can be quite irritating for a bird and actually a little bit insulting for the bird. So the most important thing is that the caretaker learns to enjoy this activity along with his bird, or ideally if you have an other bird that lives within the flock that already enjoys being misted or bathing, this is something that you should be engaging beside the bird that is more reluctant to do so. Now obviously the first important trick is to put very warm water in your misting bottle if you're going to be using a misting bottle. And of course, setting the jet at the most wide mist is always most appreciated by the birds. And of course, spraying this directly on the bird would not be the first thing you do. What I would do and what we do in our fledgling room with all of our young birds that are going through early parrot education is we mist ourselves first. And of course, get mesmerized, perhaps with a little bit of a trance with music that is fun for the birds. We try and make this whole experience an enriching one. And of course, since we are the caretakers and the mentors of the flock of our fledglings, then of course the birds are more likely to want to engage in the activities that we do because they trust it. And so it's very, very important that you as a caretaker learn to appreciate this. And so this is something that you should find with your family, perhaps a moment of the day where you're all have the time to do it, and combine it also with, like I said before, an opportunity to enrich your bird's life and also engage in fun activities with your bird. Now, originally for a bird that's not comfortable being misted, it's not surprising, and even the birds that are used to it, especially in our facility when we start the artificial rain system, originally we just started a little bit and allow for just a little mist to fall through, and within a few minutes then we start the rain again. This is normally what we do with our birds. We'll normally just get close to them and mist just a little bit and observe the mist falling down, get interested with it, and then within a short period of time the birds will want to engage in it. Very important as well, we have been talking now for a long time in the avian community about the importance of offering full spectrum lighting for enrichment and for health reasons for our birds and vitamin assimilation. But one thing that rarely is spoken about is the importance of offering a source of warm heat through a light bulb that can be offering a basking opportunity following the misting or bathing session. And for me as a caretaker, it's fundamentally important that if the bird following being wet is standing on his perch and doesn't have that warm, soothing basking opportunity, then he's less than likely to engage in a healthy preening activity, which is the ultimate goal of any basking or misting or bathing session. In our experience, a fledgling that reaches approximately 3 months normally is going to have a misting opportunity that will consume about this much water for a Quaker species. If we're dealing with an Amazon species as our favorite Millie, of course, he would probably take at least this whole bottle when engaging in a serious misting activity. Of course, if you have a larger macaw or several birds being housed in your home within your flock, then you should be considering at least a water sprayer that is of this length. And of course, this will not also contribute to tendinitis from your part, because the most frustrating thing about a misting activity and engaging in this with your birds, especially us in the breeding season when we have numerous fledgling, is the fact that it gets exhausting for your hand. So set yourself up for success, and I really enjoyed these misters because, like I said once before, they're large enough that it's not going to stop us or put a halt into the middle of the activity where we have to replenish our bottle. Now, regardless of the size, what's really important is the quality of the water that will be found within this bottle, and it cannot be neglected. And so as much as it is an important factor to assess the quality of the water that you are offering for drinking source to your bird, The water that is being used to mist your birds is also very important to consider. And so these bottles should be at least thoroughly disinfected once a week. And you should make sure that you're putting a good quality source of water in these bottles, because for sure if the birds are engaging in a good activity of misting, they will be ingesting particles of this water as well. And once they then further continue to do the pruning activity, of course, in preening their feathers, they will be once again ingesting the water. So you have to make sure that it is a healthy source. Another important consideration to ensure success for the misting activity is that the environment is a stress-free one, and of course that it is draft-free. The temperature doesn't need to be excessively hot. Birds usually do quite well, even in Quebec, at temperatures that are good ambient temperature. But it's also important to consider what surface your bird is actually perched on while it's being misted. A bird is less likely to get into an excitement activity or actually enjoy wing flapping and everything else if his perches are too slippery or if his nails are groomed too short. And so this is something that you really need to make sure you're evaluating should your bird not want to engage in a misting activity. As part of contributing to the versatile living quarters of your bird, it's very important, if your bird has learned at a young age, to be comfortable in a shower stall where you can engage with, as a caretaker, to another fun activity with your bird. Shower perches are available. There's numerous brands available on the market, and you can also look at our Parrot Life magazine to see how you can custom build your own. These, once again, should not be slippery, and regrettably, if they're not reliable, then the bird will perhaps never want to have a negative experience again. So make sure that they're very stable and that the bird will feel very comfortable while they're being misted in the shower on this perch. If your birds were trained as young fledglings through the early parrot education program to be comfortable on a flight harness, then taking the opportunity to play with them outdoors in the harness under a natural rainfall is an amazing opportunity for you to enrich their lives furthermore. Some species of birds in our care may prefer to have a bathing opportunity versus a misting one. And so it's important for you to consider and evaluate this depending on the species that you have in your care. Examples can be finches and canaries, the cockatiels, the smaller psittacines, but also the lorikeets might prefer to have access to a water bath. So some of the special recommendations that we'll make for the properties of maintaining a bath extremely clean is one of the biggest challenge. Not leaving it into the cage or attached to the cage for too long, because it can then be used as a drinking source for your birds, and this might not be the most optimal water source because it has been soiled, and so this is really important. The other consideration is that you have to gauge not to put too much water in there, because you don't want this to become a potential for a bird to drown in should it start to feel weak or for any other reason. And so these are the recommendations that we make for the use of a bird bath.